Okay, it's great to be with you this afternoon. And just wanted to start off and say I think it's a really exciting time to be in aerospace. So if you go way back, after I graduated from the academy, I was a launch controller in the Air Force, launching fairly sophisticated intelligence satellites into orbit. And if you would have asked me at that time if I ever thought I'd see the day when we'd be returning a stage one back to the launch pad, I would have thought you're crazy. But that's happened. SpaceX has made that happen. And then if we look at, in the audience today, we've got Blue Origin, Rob Meyerson was at Kistler, he's president of Blue Origin, was at Kistler in the days when I was at Teledesic. So he was working on the Kistler launch vehicle. And, I talked to him in like 2001, 2002, and this is when, Jeff Bezos was planning, okay, I want to have my own launch system, and I was talking to him, and he told me what he had planned, and I thought, wow, because what we were trying to do at Teledesic was rather ambitious, and, here we are today, and look at what Blue Origin has accomplished. It's just amazing, what is happening today in space. And so I look at, you guys that are, in bachelor's degree or a master's program today, and I go, man, it's just going to be so exciting for you. The days of humans stepping, a foot on Mars, going back to the moon, it's going to happen, and you're the people that are going to make it happen. So it's just, even at my age, I get really, really excited to see this acceleration of what's going to happen in space. But then let's come back to Earth, and look at aircraft. And I'm going to talk a little bit today about unmanned aircraft systems, and they're coming. They're coming in the next 2 to 3 years. The FAA is going to get the regulations in place, and there's a phenomenal, opportunity there, and kind of the benefits I think the world will accrue because of UAVs and autonomous vehicles on the ground, self-driving vehicles, massive investments that are being made. Intel just spent $15 billion acquiring Mobileye, which is a sensor, computer vision sensor company. So all of the OEMs, kind of the current car manufacturers, are investing heavily, and then you've got wannabes, like Uber, that are also, moving very quickly. So I think that market could happen a lot quicker than people realize. Well, so what's Echodyne? So today I'm going to tell you a little bit about Echodyne, and we're developing a radar vision platform with a focus on autonomous vehicles and systems. The radar can be applied more broadly, and I'll give you a sense of that, but we really see a huge opportunity in autonomous systems. So let me tell you a little bit more about the company. The company was founded in December of 2014, and we're located just across the lake in Bellevue, Washington. We're really fortunate to have some great investors. Mr. Gates, Bill Gates, has invested, provided our initial Series A investment, along with Madrona Venture Group and several other premier, investment firms. So that's provided really the capital that we need to go out and hire a very talented team. Currently, we're 35 FTE employees strong, growing at about 10% a quarter. And I think here in the next year or two, we could get into even to a steeper inflection point. I'm in business development, and there is a lot of interest in what we're doing. And if you have any interest at all, after my talk today, feel free to contact me, send me your resume. We're always looking for talent. We already have talent from local talent from University of Washington, either full-time employees or for internships. So I'd love to talk to you, because basically, the only competitive advantage companies have anymore is really kind of the talent, passion, and effort, of their employees. And so we're always looking for great talent. But why should you want to join a company like Echodyne? Let me tell you a little bit about why I'm very bullish on our prospects. Well, the first thing is I think we're going to have a very compelling value proposition. So what we're doing is taking high-performance radar, like phased array style radar, with the capabilities that it has, but really making it, being able to produce it at a price point where it can apply to these large commercial markets, like autonomous either cars or UAVs. So we think we've got some special sauce from a technology standpoint, and then the focus is going to be on these large markets. So autonomous vehicles, it's just a huge opportunity, and I'll get into that a little bit more in a couple of slides. And, we have really hired a very talented team. We have a very high bar for the people that we select for, for the company, and also have, I think, a very deep foundation of IP, intellectual property, patents that we have developed, and we continue to expand upon that each year. So I think, we're well positioned, and, if we execute, I think we've got a very bright future as a company. So let's talk about a couple of the areas where it's like, okay, where are these markets and what's the need that these markets have that you can satisfy? Well, let's talk about the unmanned aircraft systems market. So today the FAA has a regulatory framework for line-of-sight operations. So what that means is if you and I had our own drone service, we could take the drone out in a truck and say we're going to do a cell tower inspection, fire the drone up, go up and perform the inspection and bring it back. The whole time you've got a pilot that's in command that can see that drone while the inspection is taking place. And so there are many applications there where that is going to be effective, economical, and will take off. But there are also many applications where you really need to go what's called beyond line of sight. And so here would be an example for that. Say you own a railroad and you'd like to, you want to prevent derailments. It's kind of interesting in this day and age, you still hear about derailments, every other month. And you're like, well, how could this possibly happen in this day and age? Well, that's infrastructure. Sometimes that infrastructure gets out of alignment. There's some kind of problem that's not detected. The train goes over it and you have a derailment. So these companies want to fly UAVs over their rails, on a weekly basis to be able to check the infrastructure. In addition, if they have hazardous chemicals that they're carrying, on the train, they want to have a UAV out in front of it, to basically check the infrastructure in real time to prevent, kind of a very dangerous derailment. Well, that has to be beyond line of sight. You're talking about you want to have UAVs that can fly out hundreds of miles to be able to check that infrastructure. And so what's needed to be able to implement beyond line of sight? Well, you're going to need sensors. You're going to need sensors that are going to either be able to augment a pilot on the ground, or eventually these are going to be autonomous operations where the UAV goes out and performs its mission, and maybe somebody in a control center is monitoring dozens of different UAVs that are out performing their mission. Well, so you're going to need better sensors. Well, here's an example of where say the UAV was using an automotive radar sensor. So automotive radars have been around for quite some time, but they have a very limited range, like 200 meters, of range. Well, in this kind of scenario, say you've got a Cessna, closing in on a UAV, the closure rate could be greater than 100 meters per second. So, with only 200 meters of range, you're talking about less than 2 seconds to make some type of, corrective maneuver. As a pilot, that's certainly not enough time to kind of get that information down to a pilot and make some type of maneuver to avoid the collision. So you can see that, okay, that's not sufficient range. We're going to have a longer range sensor to be able to keep this type of a mission safe. So, an example, Jim Williams, who was a former head of the FAA UAS integration offices, said that, detect and avoid is an important, hurdle that the industry has to get over to be able to open up the national airspace. And then he feels that what we're working on, and I'll talk about a little bit later, what we call MESA DAA, detect and avoid, is a type of sensor that could help open up the airspace. And we certainly hope that that's the case. So this is UAS, but then let's talk about another scenario, which is self-driving vehicles. So here's an example of an accident that occurred last May with a Tesla automobile. So Tesla has been moving pretty quickly to move in autonomous vehicle capabilities into their cars. Well, May in Florida, there was a gentleman who was driving down the road, and a tractor trailer pulled in front of his car. And that car is equipped with a computer vision system and one of these low-range automotive radars. Well, the computer vision system could not differentiate between the white paint on the trailer and the clear, bright sky down in Florida. The radar was looking underneath, getting reflections from underneath the trailer, and thought, well, maybe it's an overpass, or some kind of sign that's going over the road. So the system just continued to plow ahead. Now, the driver in this case, the way that Tesla, states, is like, hey, you've got to, be in control. The system is operational, but it's your responsibility. But you can imagine what happens. I mean, even today, how many of us are like on the cell phone or texting while driving in total control without any autonomy? You get these systems out there that are very capable, but not maybe capable enough for full autonomy. Then the drivers can kind of, lose interest and be doing something else. And that's what happened in this case with this driver. And so the car went under the tractor trailer, and unfortunately the driver was killed. So, what that points to is a need for better sensors that when we go to full autonomy, you've got to have systems that can, in fact, detect that, okay, there's a tractor trailer, in front of us, and have the car, slow down and pull over to the side. So let's talk a little bit about the market, opportunity. And this is why, I'm excited about the future of aerospace and all the different things that will happen in terms of, potentially going back to Mars and the moon. There's also, a huge financial opportunity to get excited about here. So we think just for our business, there's a $35 billion, market opportunity spread across these 4 different areas. So if you look at the first one, just autonomous cars. When I first took the job at Echodyne, I was like, well, how quickly could this happen, that people would adopt self-driving vehicles? Now, certainly they've got to be safe, but, if they are proven to be safe, would there be a quick adoption? Because, in America, we've had a love affair with the car, the automobile, forever. So people are really going to want to give away or give up their cars. And, there's probably going to be a demographic, split, where maybe older drivers are kind of used to like having their own car, would want to, to keep those and maintain that, ownership. But there's this opportunity for, basically subscription services. So think Uber, but a subscription service where you don't own the vehicle, but the vehicle, you can just, type in your phone, the vehicle will show up wherever you are and take you wherever you want to go. You could think of this starting out maybe in urban areas, but then over time spreading out and spreading out and being adopted, more broadly. There's a good business model there, because if you think about your own car, the utilization rates are quite low. Most of the time it's either in your garage or in a parking lot somewhere. But with these self-driving cars, these fleets of self-driving cars could have very high utilization. Well, what does that mean? They could have more sophisticated sensor suites. They could be more expensive cars, to be safer, and then also have kind of cool things on the inside of the car in terms of connectivity. And how could they afford that? Because the utilization rates are going to be like 80%. So anyway, there's just a lot of, I think, momentum to make the self-driving market or autonomous car market happen maybe quicker than people realize. Industrial security is another area that we're very interested in. So just like there are a lot of positive ways that drones can be used, and I'll talk more about those, there's also criminal uses of drones. So prisons are having a big problem now with people flying contraband over the wall, into the prison yard. ISIS is dropping weapons, bombs, from drones over in Iraq and in Syria, and there's concern about that type of activity here in the U.S. for like large gatherings, stadiums, as an example. Industrial espionage is another area where somebody flies in, a drone close to your headquarters and is able to tap into your wireless network and then steal, IP. So these are all concerns that security people have. And in the past, you just tended to be concerned about, okay, who's coming up to my perimeter? So being able to see vehicles, or walkers. Now it's a 3D problem where you need to be able to see drones as well, and our sensor, is well suited to that type of market. Defense is obviously a natural place for radar, largest consumer, of radar in the world, obviously. But there's still large areas where it's been too expensive for them to apply. So one that we're involved with a prime contractor is for light armored vehicles. So imagine a light armored vehicle going down the road, enemy fires an RPG, at the vehicle. they're kind of defenseless, right now. Well, what would the Army like to have? They'd like to have sensors to be able to see that munition coming in and then fire out some type of countermeasure. Well, in the past, if you wanted to put phased array radars around the vehicle, it'd be many times the cost of the vehicle. So with our sensors, being able to get the cost down lower, it's like, okay, now it becomes feasible. So that's what we're finding, is that as people, learn more about us, they say, oh, wow, this, how we wanted to use radar in this application and it was too costly. Well, now, potentially we can. So just a lot of interest within DoD for the type of capabilities that we provide. And then, last but not least, commercial UAVs. We'll do a little bit more of a deep dive there, because that's just a huge opportunity. Where are the different applications for commercial UAVs? And so here's, a bunch of them, and I'm not going to go through all of these, but I'll just touch on a few. So if you think about construction, so trillions of dollars are spent across the planet, on construction. And, you need to survey the land, and, typically people go out and maybe do that from the ground level. Well, it turns out, UAVs are much more effective and more accurate at being able to survey a construction area. And then as the project, goes along, you want to track the progress on it. So if you fly UAS over, you can very quickly, week to week or day to day, check the progress that is happening on a site. So that's an effective use of unmanned aircraft systems. Precision agriculture is another huge area where, you've got these large farms, and, the farmer can't get out and survey, the entire property to see, hey, what's going on, within whatever he's producing. So if there's a problem with water, with irrigation, or pest, or some other type of disease, if it's weeks before he uncovers that, that's really going to hurt his yields and the amount of money that he can make. But if you're flying, UAS over on a weekly basis, or whatever, you'll be able to keep track of that. And so there's services that are being planned to do that, and then provide analytics to farmers so that they know, oh, okay, here's what's going on. I got some problem over here, one part of my acreage, and go take care of it. And then delivery. Well, Amazon Prime Air, some people ask me, well, do you think it's just kind of a little side project, a little science project? Are they really serious about doing this? They're dead serious about doing this. So, Amazon Prime Air will be delivering products, to your doorstep at some period of time within 30 minutes or less. And you can ask yourself, well, do I really need that? I've been kind of typically, even though I love technology, sometimes a late adopter or a later adopter, and it was like with Amazon Prime, when they came out with that, I thought, well, I buy quite a bit of stuff on Amazon, so I'll go ahead and try it, and now they own me. They own me between Amazon and Costco. But anyway, So, I would even pay to see the drone come up to my backyard. I think there's going to be a cool factor, to begin with it. So the whole thing, though, is, there's all these different applications, and I really believe, having looked at these, that no, there's an economic benefit, to the end customer to say, yeah, I want to do this because I am saving money or I'm getting some benefit from it. So I think there's, a huge opportunity there, but it's got to be done, safely. So, the question is, will commercial UAVs, change the world? And, I'd add on to it, for the better. And, in general, obviously, I'm tied into this industry, and I think it will. I think it'll bring a lot of benefits. But not everybody is so sure. And so this gentleman, I don't know how many of you know this gentleman? Hands. There's probably like a demographic split here. This is Alfred Hitchcock, and one of Hitchcock's movies was The Birds back in the 60s or whatever. And so the folks at Audi played a little fun on the UAV industry, kind of doing a spoof off of Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. And so I'll try to play this for you. It's not playing. Okay.
I think we can make it, right?
It's okay, Jim. Just stay calm and move as quietly as possible. Everyone understand? No sudden movements.
Google search, Bodega Beach House.
So this is, that commercial is very similar to a recurring nightmare that the FAA administrator has. As he tries to figure out how to get hundreds of thousands of UAS safely into the national airspace. And, one of the things that, you notice from that commercial is those drones are, in need of better sensors. So let's talk about the gold standard of sensors, and that's the phased array radar. And I love this picture of this aircraft. I wasn't a fighter pilot in the Air Force or whatever, but if I was, you definitely would want to be strapping yourself into this machine. And the capability of the phased array radars on our military aircraft is just incredible. And so they have very extreme performance requirements and meet those requirements. But the other thing is they're very expensive, So what we have done is basically found a way to reduce the cost of the phased array, not get the same type of, superior performance, but moderate performance that is needed for commercial markets. And so that's what we've done. And just briefly talk about the metamaterial electronically steering array, which is MESA. What we're able to do is eliminate phase shifters from the phased array, which really reduces a lot of the complexity and cost, but we're still able to steer a beam, by basically turning on and off cells in the array to be able to get the right phase to steer the beam where we want it to go. And so here's some of the comparisons. We have the same kind of high performance where we can, have full electronically scanning in transmit and receive, a broad field of view of 120 degrees in azimuth, 80 degrees, in elevation, and, microsecond beam switching. So we're able to move the beam, where we want in the field of view very, very quickly and get out to, moderate ranges, like tens of kilometers, and for like the DAA product that we're launching, like 3 kilometers for a general aviation size aircraft. And then full track while scan capability, so being able to scan the field of view quickly, but then if you see an object of interest, go back and scan that more frequently and then provide tracks to be able to say, okay, where is that, how is that object progressing, across your field of view. But it's a lot less complex because we don't have the phase shifters, which reduces some of the system, complexity that support kind of a phase shifter arrangement. And so that means that we don't have to dissipate as much heat and that we can print this, on just normal printed circuit board technology, which dramatically reduces the cost, but also some of these, what you'll hear is swap, so size, weight, and power, to kind of get it down to a range where now it could be applicable for these commercial applications that I was talking about. Now here's a comparison, some existing sensors, that are out there on the market today. So there are automotive radar, LiDAR, computer vision, and you can kind of see how they stack rank. So things like LiDAR have excellent angular, resolution. From a range standpoint, none of these sensors have, super long range, especially for like a UAS type of scenario. And, you talk about cost and reliability. LiDAR is still pretty expensive, and it's a mechanical system, so it's prone to having more reliability issues. And then when you look at it from a weather standpoint, radar, that's one of the really unique benefits of radar is weather, light rain, snow, fog, dust does really not, pose a problem to radar. But you get to computer vision, and LiDAR, a pretty significant impact. So, basically you can lose like 50 to 75% of the range capability on those sensors. So, you see a lot of LiDARs or on autonomous, self-driving cars, and they give you really good angular resolution, a nice point cloud, which is very desirable. But then when you think about mainstream adoption, hey, these things are going to be, driving around in snow, heavy rain, fog, dust, or whatever. So we get a lot of calls from companies that are interested. One example, somebody was using a mining application, and they had been using LiDAR and just finding, okay, it just was not working because of the dust in the mine. So there's big issues with CV and LiDAR in weather. And so let's add in, our radar. And what you see is that, we're going to get higher angular resolution than existing, automotive radars that are out there today, much longer range, and yet we'll still have a solid state design that we think is going to be very reliable, and the weather benefits of radar, the radar technology. So here's what we've been up to. So in 2015, we manufactured some apertures, so the antenna, and basically proven, when I talked about, okay, we can point a beam where we want it without phase shifters, we've basically proven that and reduced the risk of our ability to do that. And then in 2016, last year, produced a prototype product, and I'll get it, which we were then testing. So it's a K-band aperture. And so we built this last year and then have gone out and basically tested it, done a bunch of hardware-in-the-loop testing, ground-to-air, and air-to-air testing of this particular product. And this was designed to have more moderate, ranges. We use this not just for DAA, kind of proof of concept, but also for a variety of other applications. So a lot of other companies, have used this to kind of check out the technology. And then in addition, what we're going to get ready to release here in a couple of months is this is our Mesa DAA product, which is targeted at the small UAS market as a detect and avoid radar. So this product is targeted at this market. What you can see here is kind of a comparison between, in the high end, these this Reaper over on the left. For their phased array, you're talking about like $500,000, 50 pounds, 500 watts, of power. For us, we'll be in single-digit, thousands of dollars at low volumes, and then, like near $9,000, $10,000 and drop it down to low single-digit with higher volumes. 1.6 pounds of weight, 35 watts of power. So, we're starting to get the form factor down to, okay, commercial UAS, especially these ones that'll be flying, hundreds of miles, like for railway inspection and other applications like that, we've got a swap that is something that, will be useful for that particular market. So, this product will be coming out in a couple of months, and then going back to the timeline, we've got an auto prototype coming out later this year with a commercial product next year. So a lot of things happening, and a lot of interest in what we're developing, and we think we've got a sensor. We still got, we're an early stage company and have a lot to prove, but we feel like we've got a really good product for these various markets that I talked about. Okay, thank you.